And one of the things that was talked about in this book was attachment disorder, which at the time I had begun to research a lot about it. Because in a course I took or something, I don't know, remember now where I heard about attachment disorder, but very common with children who were adopted, not in infancy. And so all of these things together. So what I did was by this time, of course, I knew that he was doing drugs. I didn't know exactly what, how much, but he was dating a nurse, and she was getting him drugs because he had become addicted to what now I'm going to call oxycodone, because it was a similar kind of thing. Whether that's what it was or not, I don't know, but she was getting him scripts for the drugs, and so he was really addicted. And so, and when I would try to talk to him about it, of course he would say, no, I'm not, I just take stuff sometimes if I'm tired, or I work a double shift, or, this was always an excuse. But I did find this therapist in Naples, and she was doing work with attention deficit disorder in adults. And she, so I spoke with her at length on the phone, and we arranged for, my son said he would go. And so we paid for it, and he didn't have any health insurance, of course. And of course she told me, which I knew, that once she started to see him, she couldn't talk to us about, about what was happening. But anyway, so he went, and it was supposed to be an hour session. He was there for 2.5 hours. And so he liked her, but she wanted him to go to a psychiatrist because she felt that he needed to be on drugs for his ADD and for his depression. And of course, the depression was caused by the drugs he was doing, I believe, part of it anyway, but who knows. And that was it. He wouldn't go. He would not go to a psychiatrist.
Would he go back to
No,
the therapist?
he would not go back. He made an appointment, and he wouldn't, but he never showed. And so that was really the start of a real decline.
And you don't know if anyone in the military knew about this?
No.
Was there ever any talk about that at all?
No, because, he was 27 years old when he came out of the Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. And he got an honorable discharge.
Yeah.
And I have all his papers, and there's nothing to indicate that.
Right.
So I have a feeling that he just did what he had to do to stay in for the 10 years, and then all of a sudden the drugs took over, and that became his direction. A letter came in the mail addressed to our son, and it was from his high school girlfriend. So I called him, and I said, you got a letter. I don't want to use her name. And you got a letter from her. I don't want any letter from her. I don't want any letter from her. I said, well, I'm going to send it to you because, she sent it to you, and you haven't heard from her in what, 10 years or more? So anyway, all right. And so I was going to, of course, not open the letter, but he called back 5 minutes later, open the letter and read it to me. So I did, and she wrote this letter, wanted to know where he was. She had seen us, or seen my husband walking in the neighborhood or something, and realized that we still lived in the same house. And so she thought she would get in touch with him. She had been married and she was divorced, no children, and she would love to hear from him. Gave her phone number, and she had this very important position at Baptist Hospital. And so I said to him, I said, you know, you should get in touch with her. I could get in touch with her. Yeah. But he did. And we were so happy for a short period of time because we thought she was really going to help him turn things around. They got together. They started seeing each other, and she came over to see us and tell us she was so sorry about anything that had happened in high school. And, you know, I mean, it was so... Anyway, she's just a sweetheart. And so he would come home and see her, and she would go over to Naples and see him. And then he called me one day, and he told me she was pregnant. She had for 10 years been trying to have a child in her marriage and could not. And so we were thrilled. We said, oh my gosh, that's so great, you know, because we thought, oh, this is perfect. This is going to turn his life around. She is going to be the answer. And she is in a position where she would be able to certainly help him with this drug problem. So, well, I'm not going to say any more than that. But anyway, so we were just so happy, you know. And then she came over, and she said she hoped we didn't think she was terrible. That she, and we were so happy, you know. She was afraid to tell her mother because, you know, her mother wasn't so happy with our son because of all the past stuff, and you know, and all this stuff, and we worked things out. And so she, you know, we told her, you know, you've got to tell your mom. Big deal. Who cares, you know? And so we were just so happy. And my son called me on a Wednesday or Thursday, I can't remember, it was in December, and said he was coming home on Monday because he wanted me to go shopping with him. He wanted to get her an engagement ring because they were going to get married. So we were thrilled, you know, it was so great.
Oh, I can imagine.
Friday night, this was Wednesday or Thursday, Friday night at 7 o'clock, there was a knock on the door, and there were 2 police officers there telling us that he had died.
In Naples.
In Naples. He had bought methamphetamines from somebody who was making them in their kitchen. And so I truly believe in my heart that he did not commit suicide. I truly believe that he had no intention of doing this. But he was so drug addicted that even with this happiness and this excitement, and we were devastated. And his poor, I call her my daughter-in-law, still, and it was devastating, absolutely devastating.
Has she told you more about the time that she was with him? Was she aware of how serious?
She did, but she was sure he was doing everything right to get off the drugs, because she was so in love with him that, you know, even though she's in the field where she knows better, she was duped by him like we all were. You know, and drug addicts have a way of doing that. Addicts have a way of doing that. Alcoholics and addicts of any kind have a way of doing that. And she was sure he was going to be doing great, and everything they had it conquered. And it gives me a stomachache talking about it, but you know, and this poor girl, she was, you know, our whole family was just rocked by it, just rocked.
Of course.
And, you know, I have very mixed feelings sometimes about the military. I mean, I know that all of this was my son's fault. It was nobody's fault but his. He chose to do what he did. But that nobody's monitored these pain medications, and that's where it all started. I mean, you know, smoking pot and taking prescription drug, you know, opioids is a whole different ball game. And so, on one hand, the military was so good for him, because who knows what would have happened to him had he not been in the military. I mean, it was a great, for 10 years, he did fine, and he did everything that was expected of him. He never got in trouble, and you know, he never moved on, and he never did things that he could have done. But then again, I think, why didn't somebody monitor? Why did somebody keep giving him pain medications, you know?